Number one, the weakness no one admits. You are not controlled because they are powerful. You are controlled because you want to be liked. Let that sink in. The hunger for approval is the leash around your neck, and the world pulls it whenever it wants you to sit, speak, apologize, shrink. You call it kindness. You call it humility. But beneath the surface, it is fear. Fear of rejection, fear of isolation, fear of standing alone without applause. And that fear makes you predictable. Predictable men are easy to play. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. People are ruled not by force alone, but by their need for validation. If someone can threaten your image, they own you. If someone can withdraw approval and make you uncomfortable, they command you. You think you are being good, you are being manageable. The man who needs to be liked will compromise his truth, dull his edge, betray his instincts just to keep the room warm. But warmth is not power. Warmth is dependency, and dependency is weakness. The cold truth? The moment you stop needing their praise, their smiles, their reassurance, their power over you collapses, because now they have nothing to bargain with. No emotional hostage to negotiate, no insecurity to exploit. This is why most men never rise. They are too busy performing, too busy adjusting their tone, softening their opinions, shaping themselves into something digestible. Lions do not ask the forest for permission to roar. Yet you ask permission to exist every time you over-explain, every time you say yes when you mean no, every time you apologize for taking space. You are signaling one thing: control me, and someone always will. Power begins where the need to please ends. Not arrogance, not cruelty, detachment, the ability to stand alone without flinching, to be misunderstood and remain unmoved, to let silence replace justification. This is the first cut you must make. Surgical, ruthless, clean. Kill the need to please, not because you hate people, but because you refuse to be owned by them. Once that need dies, something dangerous is born, and that is where your transformation begins. Number two, approval is a currency. Stop spending it. Understand this clearly. Approval is a currency, and you have been spending yours too cheaply. Every smile you force, every opinion you soften, every boundary you bend, you are paying to be accepted. And the world is happy to keep charging you. Machiavelli knew that men reveal their change through their desires. If you desire approval, you can be directed. If you desire praise, you can be steered. If you desire acceptance, you can be threatened with exclusion. This is how control works, not with obvious force, with subtle pressure, a raised eyebrow, a delayed reply, a shift in tone, and suddenly you adjust yourself. You explain more. You try harder. You shrink. That is not coincidence. That is conditioning. You have been trained to associate discomfort with danger, but discomfort is not danger. It is growth. The man who cannot tolerate disapproval becomes a servant to whoever withholds it. Think about it. Why do you hesitate before speaking your mind? Why do you replay conversations in your head, wondering if you sounded too harsh? Why do you feel anxious when someone goes cold? Because your nervous system equates rejection with loss, and loss feels like death. But here is the brutal truth. You are not afraid of losing them. You are afraid of losing the version of yourself they validate. That image you protect so carefully. The good guy, the reliable one, the nice one. And as long as your identity depends on their approval, you are negotiable. Replace that identity with something stronger. Self-command. The Stoic does not chase applause. He does not flinch at criticism. He evaluates it, uses it, or discards it. Cold, calm, unmoved. When you stop reacting to approval and disapproval, you become unpredictable. And unpredictability is power. People cannot manipulate what they cannot read. When your mood does not swing with their opinion, they lose leverage. When your decisions are not influenced by their validation, they lose access. The most dangerous man in any room is the one who does not need anything from anyone. No reassurance, no permission, no emotional subsidy. He listens, he observes, he speaks when necessary, and he walks away without explaining himself. Approval should be a bonus, not a necessity. When it becomes a necessity, you are renting your identity, and rent is always due. Kill that dependency. Withdraw your emotional spending. Let them wonder. Let them misjudge. Let them feel the absence of your need. Because once you stop paying for acceptance, you realize something powerful. Most people were never worth the price. Number 3, detachment is a weapon. You have been told that detachment makes you cold, that it makes you distant, that it makes you less human. Good. Let them believe that, because detachment is not the absence of feeling, it is the mastery of it. Machiavelli understood that emotion is the easiest doorway into a man's control system. Praise him and he opens. Insult him and he reacts. Ignore him and he panics. But the man who has disciplined his emotions becomes a locked fortress. You cannot bribe him with admiration. You cannot provoke him with disrespect. You cannot destabilize him with silence. That is power. Most men live in reaction mode. They respond instantly to texts. They defend themselves immediately when criticized. They explain themselves when misunderstood. Every reaction reveals need, and every revealed need becomes leverage. Detachment is the refusal to hand over that leverage. It is the pause before response, the calm face under pressure, the silence that makes others uncomfortable. When you detach, you stop chasing clarity from people who enjoy keeping you confused. You stop arguing with those who thrive on emotional chaos. You stop proving yourself to those who already decided to misunderstand you. Instead, you observe, you assess, you move strategically. Stoicism is not about suppressing emotion, it is about controlling its display. The masculine frame remains stable regardless of the storm. If someone withdraws attention, you remain steady. If someone tries to provoke jealousy, you remain centered. If someone attempts to guilt trip you, you remain unmoved. Because you recognize the pattern. Manipulation only works when you care too much about the outcome. When you detach from the outcome, you detach from control. Imagine a version of yourself who does not panic when someone pulls away, who does not overthink when someone becomes distant, who does not scramble to fix every misunderstanding. That version of you cannot be toyed with, cannot be emotionally cornered, cannot be pressured into compliance. Detachment creates mystery, mystery creates respect, respect creates influence. The more stable you become internally, the less others can shake you externally. And when they realize their tactics no longer work, something shifts. They either escalate or they retreat. Either way, you remain still. Cold does not mean cruel. It means composed. It means selective. It means sovereign. Detachment is not about withdrawing from life. It is about withdrawing from emotional dependency. When you no longer need reassurance, attention, or constant affirmation, you stop negotiating your value. And that is when people begin to feel your presence differently. Not because you demand respect, but because you no longer beg for it. Number 4, the power of silence. Silence is not weakness. Silence is strategy. The average man talks to relieve tension. He explains to reduce discomfort. He fills gaps because he fears what others might think if he doesn't. That fear exposes him. Machiavelli understood that information is power, and the one who speaks first often gives away more than he realizes. When you rush to defend yourself, you reveal insecurity. When you over-explain, you signal doubt. When you justify every move, you invite judgment. Silence denies others that access. Silence forces them to think, forces them to guess, forces them to project. And projection reveals more about them than your words ever could. You do not need to correct every misunderstanding. You do not need to win every argument. You do not need to respond to every accusation. The moment you feel that urge rising, pause. That urge is the need to please wearing a disguise. It whispers, fix this, clarify this, make them see you correctly. But power does not chase perception. Power shapes it slowly, deliberately, without desperation. When someone tries to provoke you and you remain silent, you take control of the frame. When someone criticizes you and you nod without defense, you unsettle them. When someone withdraws attention and you do not react, you destabilize their expectation. Most manipulation relies on predictable reaction. Remove the reaction and the game collapses. Silence also builds gravity. The less you speak, the more weight your words carry. When you finally do speak, it lands. Calm, direct, final. No emotional leakage, no defensive tone, just clarity. That is masculine stoicism, controlled energy, measured response, strategic timing. You are not here to convince everyone. You are here to command yourself. And self-command begins with restraint. Every unnecessary word is a leak in your armor. Every emotional outburst is a crack in your foundation. Control the tongue. Control the face. Control the pace of your responses. Let others wonder what you are thinking. Let them sit with uncertainty. Let them reveal themselves in the vacuum your silence creates. The man who cannot tolerate silence will always be manipulated by the one who can. Silence communicates independence. It says, I do not need your validation to exist. It says your opinion does not dictate my internal state. And once people sense that, they tread carefully. Because now they are dealing with someone who cannot be easily read, easily triggered, easily steered. Speak less, observe more, and watch how the balance of power shifts without you lifting a finger. Number 5, withdraw the reward. Most people do not control you with force. They control you with reward, attention, approval, affection, inclusion. These are incentives, and you have been responding to them like a trained animal. When they smile, you relax. When they praise you, you perform better. When they withdraw warmth, you chase. That is conditioning, and conditioning creates obedience. Machiavelli understood reinforcement long before psychology gave it a name. Whoever controls the reward controls the behavior. If your mood improves when someone gives you validation, they own a switch inside you. And anyone who owns a switch can flip it whenever they choose. The way you break this is simple but brutal. Withdraw your responsiveness to reward. When praise comes, accept it calmly. Do not light up. When attention is given, acknowledge it without hunger. When affection is offered, receive it without dependence. You are not starving. You are not desperate. You are not waiting to be fed emotionally. This changes the entire dynamic, because now your actions are not motivated by their approval. They are motivated by your principles, and principles cannot be bribed. Think about how powerful that makes you. If someone tries to manipulate you with compliments, it fails. If they try to withhold attention to provoke you, it fails. If they attempt to lure you back with sudden warmth after distance, it fails. Why? Because you are not reacting to stimulus. You are acting from choice. This is masculine self-governance. You are not antisocial. You are anti-manipulation. You enjoy connection, but you do not depend on it. You appreciate praise, but you do not require it. You value relationships, but you do not dissolve yourself to maintain them. The moment people realize their rewards no longer influence your behavior, their leverage disappears. They may try harder at first, more compliments, more withdrawal, more emotional fluctuation. Stay steady, this is the test. Most men relapse here. They feel the tension and rush back into old patterns. Do not. Hold frame. The world respects what it cannot control, and when you stop reacting to incentives, you become difficult to move, difficult to tempt, difficult to trap. Power is not loud dominance. It is quiet immunity. Immunity to flattery, immunity to guilt, immunity to emotional bait. When you withdraw the reward response, you remove the training collar from your own neck, and suddenly you are not performing for applause. You are operating from strength. That shift alone makes you untouchable. Number 6, become comfortable being misunderstood. One of the deepest chains around your mind is the need to be understood. You want people to see your intentions clearly. You want them to recognize your effort. You want them to interpret you correctly. And when they don't, you rush to clarify. You defend. You explain. You correct the narrative. Why? Because being misunderstood feels like injustice. But here is the uncomfortable truth. The need to be understood is another form of needing approval. Machiavelli knew that perception is rarely fair, and trying to control every perception is a waste of power. The man who must always be seen as good is easily manipulated by accusations. The man who must always be seen as strong is easily provoked by insults. The man who must always be seen as right is easily baited into arguments. But the man who is comfortable being misunderstood, he is free. If someone misjudges you and you remain unmoved, you break their expectation. They anticipate defense, they anticipate emotion, they anticipate reaction. Instead, you give them composure, you give them stillness, and stillness unsettles those who try to control through narrative. Understand this. Not every accusation deserves your energy. Not every opinion deserves your correction. Not every misunderstanding deserves clarity. Sometimes silence is stronger than explanation. Sometimes distance is stronger than debate. Masculine stoicism means you know who you are without needing consensus. You do not bend yourself into a clearer shape just to fit someone else's lens. If they choose to see you as cold, let them. If they choose to see you as distant, let them. If they choose to see you as selfish because you set boundaries, let them. Your identity is not a public referendum, it is a private command. When you stop chasing correct perception, you become harder to corner. Because attacks on your image no longer destabilize you, manipulation through gossip no longer hooks you, subtle character jabs no longer trigger defense. You understand that those who matter will observe your consistency over time, and those who don't were never your audience. This does not mean you abandon integrity, it means you detach from external validation of it. You live by your code, you act with discipline, you let results speak, and you allow others the freedom to misunderstand you if they wish, because the man who is anchored internally cannot be shaken by external distortion. When you become comfortable standing alone in your truth, even if no one claps, even if some disapprove, you cross a line most never reach. You become sovereign, and sovereignty is the beginning of real power. Number 7, master the frame. Control is not about force, it is about the frame. The frame is the invisible structure that defines what is normal, what is acceptable, what is powerful. And most men unconsciously live inside someone else's frame. They react to others' moods. They adjust to others' standards. They accept others' definitions of success, respect, and worth. That is submission disguised as cooperation. Machiavelli understood that whoever sets the frame controls the interaction. If someone can make you feel defensive, you are inside their frame. If someone can make you prove yourself, you are inside their frame. If someone can make you doubt your value, you are inside their frame. And from inside that structure, you cannot win. To kill the need to please is to step out of their frame entirely. You do not argue within it. You do not justify yourself inside it. You redefine the space. When someone challenges you, you do not rush to defend. You stay calm. You ask questions. You slow the pace. You refuse to accept assumptions. That alone shifts power, because now they are reacting to you. Masculine stoicism means your emotional state is self-governed. Your tone steady, your posture relaxed, your response is deliberate. When others try to escalate tension, you de-escalate without submission. When they attempt to dominate through volume or intensity, you lower your voice. Calm dominance unsettles chaotic energy. If someone tries to guilt you, you refuse the premise. If someone tries to pressure you, you delay the decision. If someone tries to rush you, you slow down even more. You do not operate on their urgency, you operate on your timing. This is how power is exercised without noise. The frame you hold is simple. You do not chase, you do not beg, you do not over-explain, you do not seek validation. You are there by choice, not by need. And because you are there by choice, you can leave by choice. That subtle awareness shifts every dynamic. When people sense you are not dependent on the outcome, they begin to adjust themselves. They soften their tactics, they become more respectful, or they remove themselves. Either way, you remain centered. Frame control is not manipulation. It is self-respect enforced quietly. You decide what behavior you tolerate. You decide what standards you live by. You decide what energy you entertain. And once people realize they cannot pull you into reactive patterns, they stop trying. The man who masters the frame does not need to dominate loudly. His presence alone sets the tone, and tone is power. Number 8, kill the fear of loss. At the core of your need to please is one silent terror: loss. Loss of approval, loss of connection, loss of status, loss of love. And because you fear losing, you compromise. You tolerate disrespect. You accept half-effort. You silence your standards. Machiavelli understood a brutal law of power. The one who fears losing has already surrendered leverage. If someone senses that you are afraid to walk away, they own the negotiation. If someone knows you cannot tolerate distance, they control the distance. If someone believes you will endure anything to avoid abandonment, they will test how much you can endure. And you will comply. Not because you are weak, but because you are afraid. Fear makes men obedient. But here is the paradox. The moment you accept loss as possible, even inevitable, you become untouchable. When you truly internalize that you can lose people, opportunities, status, and still remain whole, you detach from desperation. Desperation is loud. It rushes decisions. It overinvests. It clings. Strength is quiet. It evaluates. It delays. It walks away when standards are not met. Masculine stoicism means you do not panic at the idea of losing something external, because your foundation is internal. If someone leaves, you remain. If something collapses, you rebuild. If approval disappears, your self-command does not. That mindset changes everything. You stop negotiating from fear. You stop saying yes to avoid discomfort. You stop lowering your boundaries to preserve connection. Instead, you operate from abundance, not because you have everything, but because you believe you can create again. That belief terrifies manipulators, because they rely on your fear of loss to keep you compliant. Imagine entering every interaction knowing you can walk away, not dramatically, not emotionally, calmly, cleanly, without resentment, without collapse. That is power. You are no longer bargaining for survival. You are choosing alignment. When fear of loss dies, attachment becomes healthy instead of desperate. You engage because you want to, not because you need to. And when people sense that you are not clinging, they respect you more, or they reveal themselves by leaving. Either outcome is clarity. Kill the fear of loss, and you remove the final chain around your behavior. Because a man who is not afraid to lose cannot be threatened. And a man who cannot be threatened cannot be controlled. Number 9, build an internal throne. If you remove the need to please, detach from approval, master silence, and kill the fear of loss, what remains? Authority. Not authority over others, authority over yourself. And that is the only throne that cannot be taken from you. Most men seek power externally because they lack it internally. They try to dominate conversations, relationships, rooms, because inside they are unstable. Machiavelli would tell you this: external power without internal discipline collapses quickly. But internal sovereignty, that radiates without effort. When your standards are self-defined, your discipline self-enforced, your direction self-chosen, you no longer wait for permission. You wake up and move with intent. You do not ask, will this upset someone? You ask, is this aligned with my code? That shift is everything. An internal throne means your mood does not depend on attention. Your value does not depend on praise. Your decisions do not depend on consensus. You consult yourself first. You sit with discomfort without running. You endure silence without scrambling. You accept criticism without crumbling. That is rule over the self. And self-rule is rare. Most people are emotional democracies. Every opinion gets a vote. Every criticism shakes the system. Every rejection causes chaos. But you become a monarchy. One ruler, one code, one direction. Calm, decisive, controlled. This does not mean arrogance. It means clarity. You know who you are. You know what you tolerate. You know what you pursue. And because you know, you move differently. Slower, more deliberate, less reactive. When someone tests you, you do not overreact. When someone praises you, you do not inflate. When someone leaves, you do not collapse. You remain seated on your internal throne. The world may fluctuate. People may come and go. Opinions may shift like weather. But your center does not. And that stability creates gravity. Others begin to feel it. They sense that you are not easily influenced, not easily provoked, not easily seduced by validation. That makes you unpredictable, and unpredictability commands respect. The ultimate Machiavellian move is not manipulation. It is self-mastery so complete that manipulation becomes impossible. When you build your throne internally, no one can exile you, because your authority was never granted by them in the first place. And what is not granted cannot be revoked. That is the posture of a man who cannot be played. Number 10, become untouchable. Now you understand. Power was never about crushing others. It was about removing their access to your weaknesses. When you kill the need to please, detach from approval, master silence, withdraw from reward, accept misunderstanding, control the frame, and lose the fear of loss, you become untouchable. Not because no one can approach you, but because no one can control you. This is the final transformation. You walk into rooms without seeking validation. You speak without needing applause. You act without requiring reassurance. Your presence becomes heavier, calmer, focused. People sense it immediately. There is no emotional leakage, no desperation in your tone, no subtle begging in your body language. You are there by choice, and choice is power. Machiavelli taught that men are controlled through their desires. So examine yours. If you desire approval, you will serve it. If you desire constant connection, you will submit to it. If you desire to be liked at all costs, you will pay that cost with your autonomy. But when your strongest desire becomes self-command, everything shifts. You no longer react to manipulation, you recognize it. You do not argue with disrespect. You distance from it. You do not chase affection. You attract it through stability. Masculine stoicism is not emotional numbness. It is disciplined emotion. It is strength under pressure. It is calm in chaos. It is the refusal to let external forces dictate internal state. And when you operate from that place, people adjust to you. They respect your boundaries. They think twice before testing you. Or they remove themselves entirely. Either way, you remain unmoved. Untouchable does not mean isolated. It means sovereign. You can connect without clinging, lead without shouting, influence without begging, and walk away without breaking. That is real power. Quiet, controlled, cold when necessary, focused always. Remember this, the world can only play you if you hand them the controller. So take it back. Kill the need to please. Build your throne. Master your frame. And watch how the game changes when you stop being available for manipulation. If this awakened something in you, if you felt the shift, then you already know the path forward. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and step into the version of yourself that no one can ever control again.